los gentes que te van a ayudar. Okay? Please be sure you go down and vote. Mail it in, drop it off, whatever you need to do. My name is Edna Collins. You're watching Yo Soy Neighborhoods Fresno. We're downtown Fresno, California. And today we're going to speak to one of the candidates running for school superintendent. And his name is Eliseo Camino. And I'm going to turn it over to him and let him introduce himself. Thank you for watching. Eliseo.
Thank you. Yes, my name's Eliseo Gamino. I'm running for superintendent of Fresno schools. I make sure, like my colleague said, that you vote. You vote this June 7th and exercise your right to vote. It's so important. Es muy importante que voten el 7 de junio en la primaria. Esta elección es de 2 rounds. El junio 7 de 3 candidatos, 2 candidatos con la mayoría de votos van a seguir hasta noviembre 2. Entonces es un proceso largo, pero les da más oportunidades a ustedes que miren la calidad de candidatos y quién va a ser su voz. Es importante que vote por correo o en persona junio 7 y después noviembre 2.
Yeah, but go ahead with your introduction.
Yes, soy educador por profesión, he sido maestro por más de 20 años, pero también administrador del año, el 2022, votado por la Asociación de Educadores Mexicoamericanos. He sido maestro del año 2021 del distrito de Raisin City. So I have a lot of experience. I have a lot of experience.
Is it go through that in English?
Yes. And so 20 years in education. I was teacher of the year 2021 for Raisin City School District. I was administrator of the year back in 2022 by the Mexican American Association of Educators.
Let me ask a question. What did you teach grade school, middle school, or high school? Share with everyone what grades you've taught, because you've had hands-on work.
Yes. Thank you for your question. I started in the classroom, and I've taught K through 12, and I also was a professor for a community college, taught 3 different transferable courses to the university. So I've been a professor at the college level, and I've been an administrator, associate dean of West Hills College. I've been a director of a college center. So my experience goes from the classroom, K-12, really K-14. So I have a vast experience. I have a master's in education. I have a clear administration credential, and it's a lot of years of preparation, but most important, the experience, the connection with the communities to know what are the real issues. Yes, and I understand the type of social emotional challenges our kids are having from the pandemic, but most important, the reason why I'm running is because of poor, low test scores on the SBAC. I have here on the screen, you can see some CAPSA scores that SBAC 2018 through 2019, prior to the pandemic. And our scores in language arts and math are very low, with the exception of Clovis. And so there's some good things going on, but they can do better. But I think that we cannot sugarcoat the concern about student learning and the fact that a lot of kids are having trouble reading by 3rd grade level.
Right. So let me ask a question. So the thing of it is that, and I even noticed this one day that I went out and passed out flyers. The school room size in Clovis averages 20 to 23 students, whereas the schoolroom size in East Fresno is running 32 to 42 participants in a classroom for one instructor. And sometimes they have an aide, and most of the time they don't. And then, in addition to that, I was just talking to someone from the central area district,
Yes.
and she says the average classroom size running 40 people. Okay. So we have a discriminative difference. Clovis School versus Fresno. And the other thing that was pointed out to me, that once you get past the Fresno County line, it's all considered agricultural, and they treat the agricultural schools differently than they do the in-city school districts. Is that true?
Well, it varies. It is true in some school districts, and I will tell you because I have had an opportunity to teach in various Fresno County rural school districts and urban, and I taught at Fresno
Mm.
Unified, and so yes, there are some huge classroom size and enrollment in certain subject areas, and many times there's, the claim is that there's shortage of instructors, and it's true. There's a shortage of instructors for math. There's a shortage of instructors in other areas like science and english or ELA, and it's our job to unite university leaders, universities, colleges, and make a plan of action to provide uh, instructors that are adequately trained in that subject matter. Because all these waivers year after year is having some negative effects on having a shortage in particular. I guess again, ELA and math, and we need to plan ahead. And this is why I'm running as well, to address the issue and not sugarcoat the problems with SBAC scores. Our kids are doing poorly, and it puts in jeopardy the American dream. I accomplished the American dream of getting an education, having a good job, raising a family. My kids are going to be fine because I'm teaching them the steps and the good study habits. But not every parent is going to have a college university education like myself. So, in order for the kids to accomplish the American dream, we need to prepare them for life skills.
Mhm.
And this is why, again, I want to push that we focus on accomplishing the American dream through education. And
Right.
again, I would support reducing the class sizes in the classroom so that instructors can dedicate more one-on-one or small group instructions to students. There's no excuse. We have record funding with COVID or coronavirus funding or the CARES Act in order to improve the and reduce class sizes.
So
Yes.
money is no longer really the issue. I mean, it's always going to linger. The money issue is always lingering. But for right now, since Fresno County was the second poorest county in California during this COVID, we assessed a lot of money that came in. So we should be a little bit in a little bit better shape.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask a couple of things. One of the things too, you're bringing up the education that occurs in the classroom. A couple of the gals that I spoke with, some of them are fluent Spanish speaking, and their children are also fluent Spanish speaking. And I asked the administrators in the school, do they also speak Spanish? And they said there are only two people that speak Spanish in the school. The majority of the people speak English. So our children don't even have the opportunity to communicate what their issues are, what their learning issues are, whatever is going on out in the playground. I guess they call it playground these days still, or campus. They cannot communicate with those people that are supposed to be helping them. Okay. Is that true?
Big problem. There are a lot of money to encourage school districts and in fact for to have dual immersion programs flourish. And many school districts are applying for those grants for the additional funding. And so now there's a returning of promoting bilingualism or trilingualism because they know it empowers our children. And in fact, I myself teach in a do immersion program where it allows kids to receive the same information, access to the curriculum of the instruction from the instructor, so that they don't fall further behind. There's a lot of benefits, and we cannot afford these programs to be killed because there's not they lack the political will. Our school board members, our elected officials. Now, mind you, there's a lot of elected officials and leadership in the schools like Leavenworth, Sunset, and other school districts that promote dual bilingualism, and the parents fight to have their children in those classes because they know the programs are effective way to empower our children, to let the kids can even communicate to their
Right.
grandparents, to sus abuelos. Es muy importante mantener, ¿verdad?, doble inmersión para cultivar las dos lenguas, las tres lenguas que los estudiantes hablen y enriquecer su aprendizaje. El lenguaje, la lengua primaria es un vehículo para que tengan acceso a la información. Talk about equal access to the information, and this prevents them from falling behind. And so
But
you're
also,
right.
this is empowering them for future education. Because let me tell you a little story. I myself realized that I was at a young age. I was third grade, something like that.
Yes.
And I don't know if they're still doing this, but they pigeonholed me and decided to get me to enunciate my SHs and my CHs correctly. And even at a young age, I was distressed with my mother. I said, well, why do I have to go to that class? Okay. And they went ahead and followed through and sent me to the class, but I was very upset about it. And the only thing that settled me down was I saw the granddaughter of the farmer, Mr. Robinson, Cheryl Robinson, was in the same classroom. And I thought, okay, if she's here, then it's okay. But if you're singling me out, it's not okay. And I get the sense that they're still doing that, because even as I progressed into junior high and high school, it was almost as if they wanted me to be a dropout.
Well, you make a very important point, and even like say Fresno Unified. The fact is that I've taught there, and there's a lot of talented young boys and girls, young adults that are bused to other schools that are better equipped to advance the talents, the raw talents of these students, and that is something positive. The downside of it, though, is that for teachers, and many teachers might not be willing to come forward and say this, but they know and understand that this is what's happening. That when these kids are bussed out to more gifted and talented type of prepared classroom settings, you have you take away the role models for our kids in the regular classroom. And so when we talk about when kids are, you don't have role models in the classes, it affects other kids. So there has to be a way to make sure that these classrooms are balanced and not singled out. Again, it's something that needs to be discussed. There's a lot of students who are very talented, and they should be challenged. We need to make sure that
Well,
they're in more advanced. But again, it has a negative effect also on the remaining students, and more challenging for the teachers. And we cannot afford to stay silent as an educator. I've seen it, and when we speak about it and acknowledge there's an issue and a problem, then we can start solving it. When you acknowledge that our kids are not doing math appropriately, not being able to write and read at a grade level, then they have problems going to the university.
let me share a little story that happened to me. Because when I went to the university and finally came to the end of completing that to get that degree, I had to take 4 extra classes in English writing, understanding verbs, adverbs, and all of that. And in my mind, I was going, here I am in Cal State Fullerton University, which is in Orange County. I came from Fresno, and they have the same school system. So I thought in my mind, how is it that our education is that far apart that I had to take 4 extra classes to get my degree? Okay. And I still sometimes have issues when I was working as a legal secretary, that pushed me to spell correctly. So I learned that on
Yeah.
the job. But my point being is I shouldn't have had to struggle those extra 4 classes.
As an associate dean of community college for over 10 years, I want you to know that English, and I'm talking reading and the writing skills to enter the university and to be able to do university level work, and math are the two subjects that our kids feel that they fail to have the appropriate training and rigor to compete with other kids, and many times they went through a lot of self-doubting themselves. And when you realize that, and I'm not here to criticize the fact that some of these schools are not preparing the kids, because there's been a lot of challenges and so forth. Again, lack of instructors, appropriate subject matter, but we need to start accepting and owning that we have a problem, and it's public information, and it's something that other leaders are not willing to talk about.
Yeah. Well, let me interrupt. I wouldn't use the word criticize. You are trailblazing to bring all these issues up because they're impacting the majority of the people that are living in Central California. They're speaking 2 and 3 languages, and English is not their first language. So this is the issue. And in order for the children to benefit and even want to attend college, they have to have, he's right, they have to have the tools, the skill level, because it makes you fearful. I went to the college, and my first test, I literally threw up and went in the bathroom and threw up because I, in my mind, was not understanding all of the words that the professor was saying out loud. And when it came test time, it was like, oh my God, I take this test. I was really very stressed out. So I'm sure, having dealt with it myself, I'm sure those little children, they're fearful. What kind of a
Yes.
feedback do you get from the moms?
Well, lo que acabo de decir es de que, miren, sin criticar a las escuelas, a los distritos, las calificaciones a nivel del condado están muy bajas en escritura, lectura y matemáticas. No tenemos los maestros adecuadamente credencial para que enseñen esas materias, pues hay que juntarnos con las universidades y planear tener maestras calificadas. Y también, como dice mi colega, porque hay 40, 36, 45 estudiantes en unas aulas. Es muy difícil para que el maestro o la maestra le dedique el suficiente tiempo, dedicación a cada alumno. Entonces, no es la mejor manera de la enseñanza, de aprendizaje. Hemos recibido dineros adicionales del coronavirus, digamos, Fresno, el distrito de Fresno recibió como 40 millones adicional de su ¿verdad? Dineros que reciben año tras año. Tiene que irse en darle servicios a los estudiantes porque no lo estamos preparando adecuadamente. ¿Por qué no los líderes aceptan que podemos hacer un mejor trabajo? No están hablando qué mal están haciendo los estudiantes para hacer un plan de acción. Y yo no voy a echarle azúcar al asunto que no tenemos un problema. Nuestros líderes, muchos no están ni hablando del tema. Por eso estoy corriendo, me estoy postulando para superintendente de las escuelas del condado de Fresno, porque yo voy a dar la cara y voy a aceptar que tenemos un problema y vamos a trabajar juntos para avanzar la educación de nuestros hijos, que no sean condenados a trabajar trabajos mínimos. La educación supera, la economía supera para Fresno y ponerla en el lugar que
So we
merece.
don't have the same issues like I experienced.
Yes.
Exactly. Tell them that too, because it's in English and Spanish. Because
Yes.
and I know the Spanish speakers, the ladies that I've talked to, even though I have my rusty Spanish, we were understanding each other. The mothers are livid. They don't want, just like my parents, they don't want to continue the farm working profession for their children. They want to have professional jobs in mainstream America. My parents didn't promote that. My father wanted me to go Hollywood. That's another story. But bottom line is, they have the same dreams and are pushing their children to arrive and achieve the same dreams that everyone else, and they need to have the open door. And right now, that door is not even halfway open, from what I'm
Sí,
understanding.
sí, como dice mi colega que ella vivió la experiencia que cuando fue a la universidad no estaba preparada para el reto académico. Entonces, si ella que escucha a las madres que quieren lo mejor para sus hijos e hijas, que quieren que los preparemos adecuadamente, estoy de acuerdo. Tenemos que aceptar el problema para que la solución es que los padres estén involucrados. Yo sé que los padres trabajan mucho, quieren tener sus buenos carros, sus buenas casas, pero la pregunta también es, ¿quién está cuidando a los niños? As we want to progress and advance in our American society, we even as parents, we play an important role because we're the first teachers. We're working hard to have a nice home, nice vehicles, but at the same time, we have the responsibility as parents to also dedicate time and guide our children. We brought them into this world and do our job as parents, and we need teachers to also advocate. If you are one of those teachers or many teachers that have over 36, 40, up to 45, 50 students in a classroom, you need to have that crucial conversation with your supervisor, your principals, administration, and you should not be targeted for speaking up about the challenges in the classroom, because many teachers who stay silent, we are part of the problem because they are not understanding and sweeping the issues under the carpet.
So let me interrupt here, because I spoke to one of the mothers and used that word target. And she told me that the director at the school, high school that her daughter is attending, told her that they were not interested, or that the Mexican Spanish speaking children were not that important. They're not worried about teaching them. They're just going to pass them through. And, oh, well, if they can work or not work in a profession, that's up to them. We put them through the school, but we're not interested in really teaching them. And I thought that was a very cruel statement. They should have never, that person should be fired. I'll let you know the name later, but that person should go and go now, because they're not interested in taking care of the children. The children, I don't care if they're in high school or not, they're still children. Men don't mature until they're about 26, and women don't mature until about 23 years old. Okay. And these children are being put upon to not only grow up fast, but not have a healthy understanding of what the world is around them and what they're going to have to be confronted with to survive. And some of them, they don't have that confidence and security in themselves. So what they end up doing, one of the gals said, I was a dropout. And I went to the fields to work with my mentor. But that's what they want. And we can't do that. We have to back them out and say, you know what? If that instructor, get a big poster and put that person's name on it and walk around the building until somebody comes out and takes a picture, or put it on your YouTube, or put it on your phone, because people need to start speaking up and telling the truth of what is occurring in those classrooms. I know for a fact, because I lived through it. This man, he knows, he's seen it. And you need there are good and bad in between people in all professions. Some people like to just run the middle of the road and not say any which way, because they want to just continue to have a job. And I get that. But our society right now is in upheaval. And then this COVID thing on top of it has even made more stressors for everyone. So the other thing that I wanted to get around to is the safety of the children. Because like I spoke to Darren yesterday about the very same subject. As I was growing up, I didn't see all these police inside the classroom and around the campus. And in going to Orange County campuses, they have no officers there. To me, that's an intimidation tactic. I hate to say it, but that's how I see it. When you see somebody with a gun and all that military stuff around their waist, and you know that they can give you a ticket, or you can end up being thrown in, youth detention, that already puts them on edge. And some of those young boys, especially the Mexican boys, they already have that fight in them. Okay,
Yeah.
right?
Well. Let me tell you. You're right. There's a lot of challenges, but let me say, let me be clear. It involves all ethnic groups. Um, Many parents feel that we have to either we're for police or against police, and let me tell you that there needs to be a balance. It's not just we're totally against police or we're totally for. Like you mentioned, there's some military style weapons that are being used against the residents in the county,
Mhm.
and I think we need to have more education. um, when before these shootings, these latest shootings that have been occurring, parents would say, "No, we want reduction in police and security because police officers do intimidate." But let me tell you, after the shootings in Texas, parents were saying, "What are the educational leaders and the public schools doing to keep our kids safe?"
Mhm.
So, it's a hate love relationship. We need to strike a balance, if you ask me, because let me just tell you, in the school where I'm a school board trustee, we got a grant to have a police officer who is involved directly in building relationships, teaching kids about the abuses and side effects of vaping and cannabis, which now it's more available to our kids and more temptation. And they're a positive influence. We want to focus on educating our kids so that way they don't have to end up in a juvenile system.
So,
Every police officer needs to build relationships.
right.
Yes, like you said, I agree with like what you said. There are some bad apples, and those police officers need to have the proper people skills to deal with the public. So some need improvement, others are working efficiently. So it's balance.
So I have one little thing that came up during lunch hour. Psychologicals. Are you guys doing psychological backgrounds? Because you're doing background checks to see if they committed crimes, but psychologically, are they in the right environment? Because one of the gals just told me one of these Central High uh, um, uh, fellas that got fired, Coach Sam Hammer, he was arrested in 2018 for child abuse because he put a rope around the student's neck. So, and he was ex-military. That tells me PTSD. And why wasn't a psychological done? I don't understand that.
Yes. Well, there's a lot of issues, and you bring up a very important point. And let me add to that. Hay muchas madres que se quejan de los distritos escolares que no son transparentes. There's a lack of transparency. There's been before the shooting in Texas, there were threats on social media that a kid was going to take knives or a weapon to campus, and in fact, there was I saw social media text and evidence that in fact they did find a kid with knives and was going to act on threads, but parents are upset because there was no transparency, there was no communication by educational leaders. Nowadays, elected or leaders of the different school districts need to be even if it's a false alarm. Let the parents know we're looking into this matter. Yes, we did find there was a knife in a backpack. Whatever the issue or your investigation, because the parents need to know that you're doing your job and you're being thorough. Whether it's a false alarm, it's better to overreact than not to react at all.
Go through the protocols.
Yes,
You have standard
I've been
protocols.
to some of the meetings. They found ghost guns here in Fresno. Some of the schools, I will, in respect to the schools, I won't name them, but those that were in informed in public meetings, you heard the parents. There's been guns found in campuses. There've been parents saying that there was no security guard in the morning to greet the kids as they come in, and that sets the stage. Parents want security. So
Mhm.
understand that the police department can do a better job in some areas. Again, not all, to build relationships.
So I
It's
have another
yes,
interruption.
and so it's let's strike a balance on that security issue because now we want officers to protect our kids. So hate love relationship, we need to strike a balance.
Now, this is an idea, and it's in my mind because Grade school children, in my opinion, should not even be confronted with officers at all. Middle school children shouldn't be confronted with officers at all. High schoolers, now their mindset is a whole different ballgame. So that we'll just leave it alone. But in those other school districts, in my opinion, and I don't know if you would be able to entertain this thought, but why don't we just call a safe zone or a quiet zone 2 blocks or 3 blocks square around the school? And then you can post the officers on the 4 corners, and the residents that live within those 2, 3 block radius, we use those little QR codes to identify them. They can put it on their windshield. Use your cell phone, click on the QR code. Right away, the officer will know. Yeah, they do belong there.
Yes.
You have ultraviolet. You can see those sensors, those heat sensors, to see how many people are in a home. I mean, that's real stuff. We can use all of those type of technologies instead of
Yes.
having all this force in front of these small children. I'm sorry. I would like to see children have their childhood given back to them, because those are the critical years. I'm telling you, they're sensitive. They remember things. I remember things from 8 years old. And that's what molds me today. That's what has me in front of this camera today. All
Yes.
right. So I'm concerned because what do you think? I
Well,
mean,
let me be clear on law enforcement. I've seen efficient schools with law enforcement that are an integral part of the school staff and are vital resource to our community, especially with a lot of the problems we have with vaping. Educational leaders know that. In theory, I do agree with you, because in theory is the less police officers that we would have on campuses. In theory, when there's no reason why they should be on campus,
mhm,
some efficient communities don't need any officers on campus. I
mm,
agree.
mm,
There's others that are not efficient. There's been shootings in schools, and I worked in Fresno Unified. Let me just say this: the kids will come running in the morning before class starts, whether they start coming in at 7:30 or so, and they'll say, "Mr. Gamino, there was a car following me. I offered me a ride, and they tried to pull me in the car." And so, having a police presence will deter these wrongdoers. So for me, I have to say it again and be clear. We need to strike a balance. Yes, there are some bad apples. There are some police officers that lack people skills. Like you said earlier, there's some educators that lost their passion and heart to teach our children. And maybe it's time to consider another career if you're experiencing burnout. But again, in order to, because there's a shortage of educators, and trying to fill qualified candidates, we need to make sure we support them as well. But again, strike a balance. And so yes, I see your point, and I
mhm.
is well taken, and I agree. There's areas where we don't need those officers.
Well, the other thing, let me interject here. I'm noticing, and back in the day when I was a young mom, I noticed that some of the individuals that were studying to be a teacher, they they had a spot at the elementary school or the middle school. Now I'm working at Amazon, and I have a little gal there. She's studying to be an instructor. She's a sweetheart. But why is she at Amazon? She should be understudy to one of the instructors so that she could start getting her feet wet, so she can understand what she's studying for and how to work with the children, and take that home to her instructor at the university, so that she has that opportunity to ask questions and understand how she can manage the children, or what she also needs to learn within her own personality to be able to bridge the gap.
Yes, you're right. You're talking about the 3B theory: believing, behaving, becoming. when you take your parents, when you take your children, your daughters, your sons to work or to go shadow a professional. High schools have, senior portfolio or job interview day. Those are best practices. When you bring our students that graduated, that accomplished their dream of joining a profession, technical career, or graduating from university, bringing them to give their testimonial and make that connection to careers is going to motivate our kids, especially when they're from your neighborhood, that they done well. We want to produce a college, university going culture, and that happens by bringing in these role models and give their testimonial, be around, mentor these kids. These kids need a lot of mentorship. And a lot of times, I see these big billboards, fentanyl, and they show the dead body, and yes, they impact them, but parents are saying there's no 1-800 number, there's no a website where they can seek help, because this is if it's affecting their children. And let me say this: fentanyl is not killing our residents of Fresno County, our children, our adults, and drugs are not killing our kids, like Antonio Escotedos from Spain, an intellectual, said. It's ignorance that are killing our kids.
Not informed.
So, yeah, so there's a lot of ignorance. We need to do a better job in educating our kids, preparing them with the right skills so they can work hard and accomplish the American dream. If we educate our population, we get rid of homelessness, we get rid of unemployment, we contribute to the economic stability and social mobility, so our residents of Fresno County can move up the social economic ladder. It's tied in with education. And so if we focus on education, this is why this position of being your superintendent of schools is so important, because that's what I want to make sure people understand. Education can solve 99% of the problems and improve our Fresno County, and improve the lives of our residents with giving them the right tools and skills so they can be successful.
So the other issues that I'm hearing about and I've seen, and I didn't encounter this. I hate to bring it up, but I was in Orange County for 35 years. And this, when I come here, I'm hearing sexual predator, sexual predator, sexual predator. Didn't hear that over there. Please, didn't hear that over there. So there's something that's clicking here that's different.
Yes, well,
And we need to sort out and figure what that is, because we're taking it out on our kids. I mean, literally. The other thing is the disabled children. A couple of the moms, and even myself, my son has a learning disability. We were never informed. And those children, I've heard moms, a couple of them, say that their disabled child, one of the gals moved away, was getting bullied from the other children. And the other thing that I'm not hearing here is that in Orange County, right away, they give them a test, and the gifted children, they send them to a different area to get classes that are more accelerated. That keeps their mind attended. Okay.
yes.
And the other children, they I guess they must give them tests to some degree to figure out where their placement is, which is a good thing, because everyone learns at a different pace. And some of those children, they'll weed out understanding, like my son has dyslexia. There's a dyslexia school. I don't know if there's a dyslexia school here in Southern California. They have one at Newport Beach. So all of these children that have certain learning deficiencies, it's really not them. They just need extra coaching or extra instructors that have special skills. What are we doing about that?
Well, you bring a good point. Los padres que tienen hijos con necesidades especiales, durante la pandemia les quedamos mal. Tenemos que reconocer y aprender que no abandonemos a estos niños que necesitan esas terapias, esos servicios. Entonces, yo como su superintendente de las escuelas del condado de Fresno, voy a asegurar que estén recibiendo esos servicios, no esconder el problema. Muchos niños no están recibiendo o no están siendo evaluados apropiadamente para que se les den esos servicios. Y antes de la pandemia no debe ser una excusa por la falta de servicios. We should not have excuses. Our biggest losers were the students with special needs during the pandemic. But also at the state level, there was a lot of openness and took away the restrictions on categorical spending on those vulnerable groups where school districts can spend their money and balance the needs of all students. And so those monies were designated for special populations with greater need. And so we need to come back. We need to make sure that the state funds those appropriate funding to provide those services, extra services above and beyond. And so I agree with you. Special education is never funded adequately. So I want to make sure that I'm going to be working with all superintendents of all 32 school districts to make sure that these kids don't stay behind, and in general that all kids don't stay behind because with these academic scores, and again, this is a 2019. I want to make this document public. It's public information on the website that you can look up any school year at any high school and you can get the results. For example, this one's Layton, California, and not to pick on Layton because there's so many other schools similar. 13% in mathematics, 11th grade,
They
scores
have
28,
they have the
2019.
same issue in East Fresno.
So what's happening with the other uh, uh, rest of the population?
Mhm.
If you're close to maybe 10% or 50%, and what's happening with the other 85? Why are we not having more tutors, reduce class sizes? A lot of times, school board members and as a trustee, we need to spend the money and have teeth when we want to invest and to improve the education. Reduce class sizes and invest in early education programs and bring in certified tutors so that we can have these kids be successful. A lot of times parents say, well, or leaders, we're going to retain a kid or retain them for another year to repeat the same grade. That's not a solution.
Well, my understanding, just to interrupt, my understanding is a lot of the students that I've spoken with, even the ones that are scoring low, they just pass them through.
Social promotion, they need to go to summer academy. You Summer school cannot be summer school and fun and games and enrichment. It needs to be core teaching so that these kids can catch up to those that are doing core curriculum. Why can't we teach core curriculum instruction so these kids can catch up on their academics? It cannot be just fun and games, and there's a lot of good STEM programs and so forth, but we need to teach core. No more summer school for just for fun. If we learn something from the pandemic and we want our kids to catch up, we need to stay focused and teaching them.
Well, this has been going on for quite some time. I mean, I was in school in 1962. I mean, to me, there are no excuses for this. There has been diversity in these communities for quite some time. And to quite say it quite plainly, the reason for that is because they want to make sure they're populating their farm work profession. And that's not okay. That's not okay. We are at the student level this high. They need to know that they are equal and they're accepted. And that's a big thing, the acceptance. Because if they don't feel comfortable and accepted, they're always going to be hiding in the corner and something is not going to get done for them because they aren't speaking up. They're shy. You know, I was a shy one, but then after a little while, I got my voice out there. It's only taken 52 years to get like this. So let me ask one other critical question because we're at the end of this. We could go on and on. But
Yes.
one of the things I know is that I learned when I went finally and got into professional type of atmospheres, the leadership comes from the top. It's a pyramid. Okay. Don't listen to the pyramid scheme thing. It's always been a pyramid in every business. The leadership is from the top. That's where you get the attitude and it comes to the bottom. Okay. And if that leader is not caring and is not focused on their profession and doing the good of what they're supposed to be doing, it's going to show at the bottom. Okay. Now, the other thing that I want to bring up is somebody said modernization of the school systems in our counties. What do you think?
Well,
need?
it's obviously we do need to go more green, and given the outrageous respiratory problems with our kids and pollution, we need to go more green. Our buildings and our infrastructure, I agree, but we need to just focus on educating our kids to have a prosperous Fresno County, and bringing economic development. I will leave another quote from Antonio Escotado, who said that the progress of cities and counties and even the state, it should not be measured on how many Fortune 500 companies come into your cities and your county, and should be measured by the level of education. And that's how you know that you're progressing. We have less than 8% of our county residents that hold a bachelor's degree or higher.
Less
8%,
than 8%?
based on stats from the county. And it's public information. We can do a better job. This is why I'm running. And I want to hear solutions. Do I have all the answers? No. But I'm here talking to the parents, getting involved, and improving. One more thing. For example, Fresno County, Huron, California wants their own high school. They have over the population over 500 students. Layton, California, Carruthers, California, and Riverdale has less population than Huron. 9 miles apart, have their own high school. Is a social justice issue. Y una vergüenza que Huron no tiene su high school con más de 500 estudiantes. Las madres me pidieron mi apoyo. No necesito que ganar la elección para apoyar y involucrarme en lo que es justo. It's the right thing to do. It's a long overdue. The Fresno County Superintendent of Schools cannot ignore the issue and the voice of the mothers. Okay,
well, he's been doing it for 30 years.
Well,
and then I don't know where Bob Nelson fits in.
This is why I say ya estuvo suave. Enough is enough. We need positive change. We need social justice movement to change our entire county.
But again, it comes to the parents speaking up when there is a wrong. You need to document, take pictures, have your child keep a journal with the dates. If they have a cell phone and can take a picture, if there's a bullying fight or something going on, document it, because the only way you prove your case is to have the evidence.
Last thing, vote Eliseo Gamino for Superintendent of Schools, June 7th and November 2nd. Without your vote, I cannot make these changes. So there's a sense of urgency. We want to change Fresno. We want to change the results. I'm here to listen. I'm here to lead and make sure that we keep the American dream alive. I accomplished the American dream, but kids should not be condemned to work minimum jobs without their education, without improving their math scores, their language reading and writing scores. We need change, and we are not going to sugarcoat the problems. If we cannot accept we have a problem, then we cannot improve.
Right. Identification and zeroing in. Yes, that's definitely something that has to be done. Like I said yesterday, honestly, I don't have grade school children here, but I have a lot of feedback from the moms that I'm hearing about. And right now, I don't understand. We should have had more charter schools and more homeschooling. The homeschooling is very good here. I've met quite a few of the ladies, and they're going to do a little skit to share with people, disabled children, that homeschooling would be very good. I realize that majority of the folks out there, they're going to be farm labor. They're working. Some of those people work 2 jobs. Okay. So I don't know. Before we had, for example, I can only talk about what my reality has been. Quigley Park was a full setup where they had baseball trainers, different athletic sports that people could coach and teach them. And the grade school children would go to the park. That was a safety zone. But for whatever reason, Fresno County's all messed up on that. We need to start bringing them back to the gyms. And that's another thing. You need to have more gyms in some of these rural areas. People need to exercise and take care of themselves. Eat good food. Get exercise, breathe good air. Hello. All right. Those are the components, plus keeping a nice nurturing environment for them. Because I know when I got really tensed up, that studying doesn't go through. All righty.
Yes.
And you gave your pitch. You have your website and phone number?
Yes, yes. You can look up Eliseo Gamino for Superintendent of Schools. If you need to reach me, I do answer my phone. It's 250-1253, 559-250-1253. And my motto, ya estuvo suave. That's it. Enough is enough. We want change. And the problem is, no one's talking about the students' academic learning. It's poor. And we have to own it. We have to talk about it so we can do a remedy plan and start targeting those areas of weaknesses.
Well, what concerns me too is that some of the things that we put in place back in the 70s are no longer there. The sex education, talking about, real life situations that the high schoolers are going to be confronted with, learning to balance their checkbook, basic things that they need to
Yes.
know, understanding credit. Back when I was growing up, we didn't have credit. That was only a rich man's deal. They're the ones that had credit cards because they could back it up. Now we have credit illiteracy. We need people to understand that puts them in a hole.
You mentioned something very important, our sex education curriculum. Some of the board trustees and our elected leaders think it's taboo. We need to give our children the right information. All these telecom companies are bombarding our kids with sexual content and sort of playful games. Kids need to have the right education and information, and we need to beef up our curriculum. We're probably dealing with sex education curriculum from the 30s. I will address the issues that nobody wants to talk about. As a father, as an elected official, as a superintendent of schools, I will address and get these curriculums up to speed, because I don't want children to be operating with these ads and sexual content that they're not ready at an early age. It's ridiculous. As a parent, as an elected official, school board trustee, that needs to stop.
Well, they're taking away their innocence and their ability to mold and shape their own future.
And people are staying silent. We need to beef up our sex education curriculum so our kids are not having babies. They have no information.
Nope, they don't. And the information they're getting is very one-sided. They're not getting a full picture. Okay.
Yes.
And those are things that are, back then we could do it as an elective. Okay.
Yes.
And the parent could sign on or sign off. Yes, no. But I understand, being a Mexican, my mother didn't talk about certain things at all. Oh, here's a Kotex. Why is that happening? Well, we never got a discussion, because that is the taboo in our culture, and the culture itself is not going to change. There's a lot of issues in the culture. We'll get into that later.
Yes.
And they impact the people today. And what we need to do is open the door.
Yes, and technology is a double-edged sword. We can use it to educate our kids in a safe, healthy way, or we allow them this predatory sexual content explicit to our underage children that are not ready to handle those facts. And our schools can play an important part, but elected officials need to hold these telecom companies accountable, because there's a lot of inappropriate sexual content at an early age. So with technology comes responsibility.
That's right. But you made a comment about some of those people that are in those positions. They say it's taboo. Well, shouldn't we start to get rid of those types of thinking? And I mean, I realize they're elected, but then we need to be completely transparent as to who they are, what they're about. And if they're that deep, like the ostrich with the head in the soil, that's not where it's going, folks. I'm 68 years old. You see, I'm in front of this camera. If I can do this, they can do it. You just have to open the door. So this man, he's been on the ground floor. He speaks the language. Please, let's start making good decisions about who you're voting for. You have the results in front of you, and they're not giving up their positions. The majority of us are of color. Let's vote and take a stand. And more women. And not I know there's good and bad, but let's be careful with the women too. We
Sí.
need that.
Como dice mi colega, tenemos que impulsar el voto, más participación. Muchas veces los oficiales electos duran ahí 20, 30 años, como que son dueños de esos puestos. ¿Y saben qué? Es porque nuestra gente no vota. Es tiempo del cambio, es tiempo de votar. Regístrese para votar o vaya a las urnas el junio 7 y el noviembre 2. Solo ustedes pueden hacer que yo llegue a ese puesto para que de una manera estar conectados con la comunidad, y yo soy el que va a escuchar los problemas que nadie quiere hablar. Así es de que no se olviden de votar.
Okay, I think our time's running out. I appreciate you driving over, and I wish you the best of luck, but it's up to the people. Here's our opportunity. We need to start standing up and doing the right thing, because you see how it affects all of us. We have a president. Well, anyway, that's my opinion. But we got somebody that's putting us in the ditch. And it really worries me, because they're giving away our money, they're giving away our arms, and they're making us weak. And those are the things that our children need to be trained to handle, so that their future is better, and their children's future. Yeah, we're going to go away as we age out, but then they're taking over, and I want them to have the best of the best. All righty. So I thank Eliseo, and I wish him the best. Please go out and vote. Thank you for watching Yo Soy Neighborhoods Fresno.
Okay.